Welcome to Quick Wins Live. This is a monthly series that we do at Kolbe, where in 30 to 45 minutes, we're trying to deliver maximum value on some of the challenges that you all are faced with. And the topic that we picked for today is called Good Advice Gone Bad. So I'm going to be your host for this session. My name is Eric. I'm a 5392. I'm a VP at Kolbe, and I'm also one of our master consultants or senior consultants. On the chat, we have Derek from our account management team. Derek is a 4384. And then you probably see that Kolbe logo listed as Kolbe Training. There is a real person behind that. It's Diani, and Diani is a 7725. So today, the three of us are going to deliver some quick wins for you that you can apply in your life as soon as you get off of this webinar. As you go through this, if you have questions, if something doesn't make sense, please feel free to interrupt, ask questions. Again, Derek is on the chat. He will answer those questions, or he'll kick it over to me and we'll make sure that we get them answered for you. So to jump in and get started, just put a yes in the chat if you've ever created a New Year's resolution. Simply just type yes if you've ever had a New Year's resolution. I would bet that's probably 99% of us have come up with some version of a New Year's resolution. And there's lots of different flavors. Maybe, on our list here, it's to get in shape, sleep more, drink more water, whatever it is. We've all come up with something like this. But what the research shows is most of us are not successful with our New Year's resolutions, right? We have all the best intentions, we're motivated, we're fired up to do whatever that thing is. And then, right, a week in, 2 weeks in, something like that, that motivation starts to fade. We're not quite as fired up. It's a little bit harder. And so we try to figure out like, all right, how do I keep this thing going? How do I actually accomplish my resolution this year? And so sometimes what we do is we go out, online, and we look and we try to find, someone that's really successful and be like, hey, what do these really successful do? Successful people do? What can I learn from them? So easy example, if you want to learn about someone successful, Coach Nick Saban. So he is probably the best college football coach in the history of all college football coaches. He's won 7 national championships. He won, 80% of his games over 28 years. So he was able to repeat success year after year after year after year after year. And he has some really, really great advice. And this is just one quote that I got from Coach Saban. There's a whole bunch of stuff here, but if you just read the part that's bolded, it says, do the right thing all the time. The rest of his quote is giving you different scenarios to when do the right thing. But if you focus on do the right thing, you're going to get results. That is fantastic advice, and it's fairly universal. Regardless of your situation, where you grew up, your strengths, whatever it is, do the right thing is always great advice. And there are lots of other kind of universal pieces of great advice out there in the world. But you're still not feeling it, right? You're still struggling a little bit to get that New Year's resolution going, or you're still struggling to implement that new system in your business, something like that. And so you're like, you know what? There's lots of great books out there in the world. Maybe there's a book I can read that can help me get this thing done. And I have all of these books actually in my Audible library, so that's why I picked these. One really great book is called Finish What You Start, right? The Art of Following Through, Taking Action, Executing, and Self-Discipline. There are some fantastic tips, tricks about all of those things inside of this book. Another one, again, right? Let's look at a bunch of successful people and let's see what have these successful people done. So Tools of Titans, right? Tim Ferriss went out and he interviewed a lot of really, really successful people. He interviewed Joe DeSena. He's the guy that created the Spartan race. He went out and interviewed Rick Rubin, who's a famous music producer with the Beastie Boys and Jay-Z and lots of other artists as well. Mark Andreessen, he interviews in there. Mark Andreessen is a famous venture capitalist. Tony Robbins, kind of the guru of self-help. He gets some tips and tricks inside of Tools from Titans as well. Or one of my personal favorites, it's called Embrace the Suck, right? It's a Navy SEAL's Guide to an Extraordinary Life. There are amazing pieces of advice in all of these books, and probably in most of the books that you've read throughout your career and throughout your life. And so as you read these and you begin to use them, you start to think like, how can I get more done? Right? And there's this do more scale where you can, through the power of discipline and just focusing and embracing the suck, you can get more stuff done and you can continue to move up that ladder. But what I will tell you is we all have a practical threshold. There's only so much that we can suck it up. We can power through and grit our teeth to get it done. And eventually, when we hit that threshold, that's when burnout kicks in, right? So it's not just about doing more or powering through to get stuff done, because you're going to hit a cap at some point. So the opposite of that is, all right, what if we're going to do it a little bit more naturally, right? We're going to lean into our strengths. We're going to do what feels good. Sometimes folks overcorrect and they only focus on the things that feel comfortable or feel natural to them. And that's what we call unproductive freedom. It's great to do things that line up with your strengths, but if you're not actually driving results, getting towards the things that you need to get done, you're not really helping yourself either. Where we all ideally want to get to is this area what we call sustainable performance, where we're getting a whole bunch of stuff done, but it feels natural. It feels like we're in the zone or our flow state because it aligns with our strengths as well. And we don't just have one strength. All of us are our own unique secret sauce or our own unique mix of strengths. And there's a concept that goes back to ancient Greek called the three parts of the mind. Think of this like all of the strengths that we all have combined together. So we have what are called thinking or cognitive strengths, things like our natural intelligence, skills that we've acquired over time, experiences. Those are all cognitive strengths. Then we have the feeling or the affective strengths, things like motivation, right? When you sit down and you write down that New Year's resolution, you are motivated to do that thing, whatever it is. You're fired up. That's in affect. But values, personality also live in affect. But there's this third part that most of us aren't really aware of. It's called the conative part of the mind. It's all about how we do stuff, how we actually get work done. But again, we're all our own unique secret sauce, our own unique combination of these strengths. And we're all at our best when we get to use all of those strengths together. Today, what we're really going to focus on, though, is the doing or the conative part, because in order to get work done, in order to reach our goals, we have to do stuff. And so when you think about your conative strengths, a couple of things to keep in mind. Just know that they're innate. They were in you when you were a little kid. They're in you now. They're going to be the same strengths when you decide to retire and play golf or hang out with their grandkids. Also, we know about the conative part of the mind. It's how you solve problems. And if you think about all the stuff that comes at you throughout the day, right? You're essentially problem solving all day long. That's how you're getting work done. So the conative part of the mind is how you take action to reach those goals, to accomplish tasks. And at Kolbe, that's actually what we're the experts in. We're the only ones in the world that measure the conative part of the mind. And earlier, I asked a number of you in the chat to let me know, hey, what are your 4 numbers? What's your Kolbe MO? You're able to do that because you took the Kolbe A. That's what we're measuring with the Kolbe A. Your conative strengths, how you naturally problem solve, how you get stuff done. If you took it and you don't know what your results are, go to kolbe.com/findmya, enter in a little bit of personal information, name, email address, that kind of stuff, and you'll be able to find your results. But again, that's what we're measuring with Kolbe. That's what we're going to focus on is applying how you naturally get stuff done or your mode of operation to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. And what I know about all of us, because we're all people, is we all have 4 ways that we naturally get things done or we accomplish tasks. First, fact finder. We all have to gather and share information. So everybody has one of those red bars. Then we all have a blue bar, which is follow through. It's about organizing and designing. Then that green one, quick start, it's about dealing with risk and uncertainty. And finally, that yellow one, implementer, is about dealing with space intangibles. And so we all have those exact same 4 colorful bars. That's the way that all of us get stuff done. But we also have 4 numbers. So as you look at your numbers in each one of those colorful bars, keep this in mind. It's not that a 1 is better than a 10 or a 10 is better than a 1. All we're simply trying to figure out is on this scale, where do your particular strengths fall? And then, based on where your numbers lie, we can predict how you're going to take action. So, Derek, again, is man in the chat. Derek is a 4384. So, in Fact Finder, what I can expect from Derek is he's going to explain because he's in that mid range there, that 4 to 6 zone in Fact Finder. In follow through, he's a 3. So, he's going to adapt. In Quick Start, he's an 8, so he's going to innovate. And then in Implementer, he's a 4, so he's going to restore. So if I know that Derek is a 4384, I know how he's going to solve problems. I can predict how he's going to get stuff done. And regardless of what your 4 numbers are, just know those are amazing talents for you. Just that, again, we all do things in different ways. And so as you start to decipher and go through the world and figure out, hey, what is really great advice? And which advice should I kind of let go off my shoulder or should I throw in the trash can? Keep your strengths in mind because different pieces of advice are going to hit you in different ways, are going to be applicable to you in different scenarios. And, as we go through our life, we all have parents, teachers, coaches, something like that, right? When we're little kids, we for sure, we have parents or we have, grown-ups that are taking care of us. We have teachers because we got to go to school, and you have some version of a coach, whether it's a football coach, whether it's your violin teacher, or any of the other activities that we take on when we're children. And as grown-ups, right, we have these folks as well. Sometimes they're called mentors. Maybe they're called bosses. Maybe you've hired an executive coach or a professional coach, something like that. And these folks all have really great intentions. And they're really trying to help you for the most part, right? But here's what I can tell you. Many of your parents, teachers, and coaches messed you up. And it wasn't intentional. It was because they do things in a very different way than you. Again, not a knock against these folks. I'm positive they were really trying to help you, but this is what it looks like in real life. So we have a real person, me, I'm a 5392, and we have a real person, Frank Herrera, aka my dad, and my dad was an 8723. So as I was growing up, my dad gave me lots of tips, tricks. He gave me pieces of advice over and over and over again. And when he would give it to me, it wouldn't quite make sense in my head. I was trying to do the thing. I'm like, hey, my dad knows what he's talking about. I'm going to try this stuff. And something just felt off. It didn't quite work. And until I was a grown-up, I didn't understand why. The reason is we are wildly different. Now, you don't need to be Kolbe certified to look at those 2 results and see that they're almost opposite, right? But you can look at us and see we are very different. And so when my dad was giving me that advice, it was from his perspective, from the way that he naturally takes action. But it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't quite work for me. One thing that he hit me with over and over and over and over again was a quote that was similar to this, which is proper planning and preparation prevents poor performance. Now, if you're in the military, there's another way to say this, right? That's not quite as safe for work, but it's all the same thing, right? Proper planning prevents poor performance. And I got hit with this over and over and over again. I tried it. It was terrible advice. I actually got worse results when I planned, when I did all kinds of preparation, all of that stuff. And so it's not just understanding, your own strengths. It's taking a look at who's giving that advice and seeing what is their perspective and does everything line up. Right? Because again, I am 100% sure my dad was trying to help me. So he was well-meaning, but it was misguided simply because he didn't know my strengths or how I naturally do things. Or, right, we have, like I said, we have those coaches, teachers, mentors, or sometimes you go online. Maybe you're scrolling Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, whatever it is, and you're like, hey, I need some productivity hacks. Well, hey, I went online and I found 15 essential time management productivity hacks. Might be good advice, might not. It actually depends on what my natural strengths are. Here's another one, right? If you can't focus on the bigger picture, you're a liability. right? Or maybe sometimes we look at some of those like mentors to all, someone like John Maxwell, right? Most of us have read his books, seen his quotes out there in the world, stuff like that. He's definitely a self-help leadership kind of guru. And his thing is the secret to your success is determined by your daily agenda. And we get hit with snippets like this all of the time. Or sometimes, right, we see famous people who are really successful out there in the world, and we see little blips like this. So Richard Branson, who founded the Virgin Group and hundreds of different companies within that, right? And his a famous quote from him is the brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all. Sounds really cool. It definitely makes you click it if it's on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. But sometimes it's missing some context. And even Richard Branson, who is a wild risk taker, added a little bit of context to this quote. And the context is, right, while risks are important, they should be calculated. The problem is if we add this little extra bit that some of the risks need to be calculated, it doesn't get as many clicks. It doesn't get as much engagement. And so we're just like, I got to go for it if I want to be successful, like Richard Branson. All right. So when you all signed up for this, we had you answer, we asked the question like, hey, what's the biggest burning question around advice or tips or something like that? And you all asked it in a slightly different way. But one of the questions that popped up over and over again was, how can I tell what is good advice for me to follow? The short answer is it depends. The reason it depends is it depends on your natural strengths, how you naturally problem solve or get stuff done. So to help in kind of going down this process of figuring out what's good advice for you, look at your Kolbe A results, right? Because on there it says you got a perfect score on the Kolbe A. Every person on this call got a perfect score on the Kolbe A. Everyone in the world got a perfect score on the Kolbe A because your strengths are perfect for you. They may just be wildly different than mine or Derek's or Deani's or anyone else's. So always start with how do you naturally take action? Your Kolbe A results. And then you can look at each of your individual colorful bars. So again, Fact Finder is about gathering and sharing information. So if you're a 7, 8, 9, or 10 in Fact Finder, here are some really great advice that you can use. Question frequently and thoroughly. Justify the why. Now, if you're a 7 through 10 in Fact Finder, you've probably been told not to do that because you hit people with too many questions. That's terrible advice for you. The best advice for you is ask a whole bunch of questions, get into the details, question thoroughly. Other great pieces of advice, weigh the pros and cons, or define terms before answering questions. What does sort of mean? Tell me more what you mean about this, because those subtle differences in terms or how we interpret things can wildly change the answer, especially if you're a 7 through 10 in Fact Finder. All right, so that's some of the great advice if you're a 7 through 10 in Fact Finder. What's some terrible advice? So if you're a 7 through 10 in Fact Finder, some terrible pieces of advice. All you need is the summary. You don't. You actually need to read through the entire thing if you're a 7 through 10 in Fact Finder. Me and Derek, we actually thrive with the summary, but we're not a 7 through 10 in Fact Finder. 7 through 10s, read the entire thing. Or don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry about the details. If you're a 7 through 10 in Fact Finder, not good advice at all. Or keep it short and sweet. You've probably been told that at some point in your life. If you're a 7 through 10 in this, don't. Don't keep it short and sweet. Expand, go into the depth, go into the details. All right. What happens if you're a 7 through 10 in follow through, right? You have that blue line. Blue line follow through is all about organizing and designing and also creating systems. So what's great advice for you as a 7 through 10 in follow through? Build a plan and a backup plan and a backup plan for the backup plan, right? Think through all of the what ifs. When problems land on your desk as you're navigating the world, or if a customer calls with a problem, think of it like a puzzle. Sort all of the puzzle pieces and start to figure out how do they fit together. That's the best way for you to get stuff done. Or when it feels like things are changing all around you, right? Then identify what's staying the same. That's how you can start to build out your plan and keep going with what's been working. What's terrible advice if you're a 7 through 10 in follow through? Just go with the flow. You are probably, if you're a 7 through 10, you have a structured plan. You have a schedule that you follow, and you've probably been told you're too rigid. Just go with the flow, man. No, don't go with the flow. Go with your plan. You thought through all of the scenarios, the stuff that could go wrong. Or, right, we'll finish it later. Don't worry about it. For me and Derek, we probably say that like 15 times a day because that works for us. But we're not a 7 through 10 in follow through. If you're a 7 through 10 in follow through, don't worry about finishing it later. Finish it right now. Or figure it out as you go. We don't need a plan. Just go for it. Not good advice if you're a 7 through 10 in follow through. All right. What happens if you're a 7 through 10 in quick start? So quick start is all about dealing with risk and uncertainty. So great advice for a 7 through 10 in quick start. Race the clock. Really, really tight deadlines. That's where you actually get the best work from us. So if we wait till the last minute, that's actually okay. Or another one, just go for it and see what happens. We need to try things, experiment. If something doesn't work, we're going to try something else to figure out how we go under, around, through an obstacle. And don't be afraid to guess. If you don't know the answer, just take a shot. It's okay if you're wrong. Someone tells you you're wrong, fine, come up with another answer. It's okay to guess if you're a 7 through 10 in quick start. So what's some terrible advice for folks like me, people like Derek? All right, here's some terrible advice for us. Make it perfect. There are some folks who are absolutely right. They're perfectionists. It's okay. And they want everything to be exactly right as we're going through it. 7 through 10s in quick start, we don't need that. Something breaks, we'll figure it out. Or follow the script. I lovingly say that I'm allergic to scripts because if I'm reading a teleprompter, if I have a script in front of me and I have to follow it, I stutter and I stammer and I'm off. I'm definitely not on my game when I'm trying to follow a script. I gotta just make it up as I go. Or take every precaution, right? Another way to say this, minimize all risks. Should you take crazy risk, right? Should me and Derek jump off a 100-foot cliff with no padding underneath, no parachute? No, that's stupid. We're going to kill ourselves, right? But should we worry about every single possible thing that should get done before we jump off that cliff? No. Derek and I actually thrive in an environment where we jump off a cliff and we build the plane on the way down. So 7 through 10s, there's some great advice and some terrible advice for you. All right, Implementor, that yellow one, it's about handling space intangibles. So think of physical implements, a surgeon's scalpel, a hammer, a screwdriver. Even this clicker that I'm using to go through my slides here are implements, tools to get the job done. If you're a 7 through 10 in Implementor, here's some great advice for you. Use the best possible tools and space to craft solutions. I have a real life example of this. I'll bet most of us have purchased some kind of furniture or child's toy that we have to put together. And when you buy that thing, you probably get an Allen wrench that looks like this, right? It comes vacuum sealed in that like paper and plastic thing. And then you're putting the thing together using it. If you're a 7 through 10, don't use this piece of junk Allen wrench that they give you. Instead, use the right tool for the job. Use the highest quality tools that you can. Other things. If you're 7 through 10, communicate in person whenever possible, right? In the modern world, we have text and email and chats and Zoom and all kinds of ways that we can communicate electronically. In person is most effective if you're a 7 through 10 in Implementor. And another thing is use scale models, use props, right? If I'm talking about a plane, I'm going to bring out a scale model of a plane. Or even if we're talking about the size of something, use your hands to demonstrate how big something is. Stephanie, who is our VP of training on our team, her husband is a 7 through 10 Implementer. When he's talking about people, he actually uses a salt and pepper shaker. And he'll say, all right, this is Bill, and this is Stephanie or whoever, and he'll move them around. as a way to demonstrate or use props. So these are the hands-on folks, right? This is the great advice for them. What's terrible advice for them? Describe what's in your mind, right? For most of us, we see a picture in our mind, we can start to talk through it. That is not effective if you're a 7 through 10. Instead, build a scale model, use a prop, something like that. Make a physical thing out of your idea, out of what you see in your mind to help you describe it. If you have little kids, you're probably familiar with this one. Look, but don't touch. My daughter is a 7 and implementer in this, and sometimes I forget. And when we go to a store, I tell her, look, but don't touch. She actually needs to pick it up, hold it in her hands, play with it. The exception is when we go into one of those like crystal shops where they have really expensive little pieces of glass and figurines. She can't touch stuff there. But everywhere else, I let her touch stuff. Or another piece of advice for a 7 through 10, just throw something together. Get some duct tape and some bubble gum, slap it together. No. You need to create really, really high quality solutions. They're going to stand the test of time. So where we went through was each of the 4 Kolbe strengths. And wherever your 7, 8, 9, or 10 falls, I gave you some really great advice that you need to follow. And that bad advice, if you've received it or someone gives it to you, just be kind. Say, hey, thank you. I appreciate that. But in your mind, throw that bad advice in the trash can because trying to follow it is going to mess you up. It's going to stress you out. So as you think about, right, applying your strengths, as you start to think about what's the right advice for me, the easy way to think of it is get clarity, right? Because if I tell you to describe to me what's in this picture, you can probably guess, right? I don't know. Kind of looks like a basket of fruit. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like a picnic table, something like that. You can kind of muddle your way through it. But if you're very clear on your strengths, how you naturally get stuff done, it makes everything so much clearer. And you can actually count how many apples are in that bushel of apples. And you can see that there's a little handheld basket in the back, and then there's the trees and the grass and all of that stuff. So really lean into what your natural strengths are. Whatever your 4 numbers are, wherever they lie in those 4 colorful bars, that's your superpower. So lean into it. And right, as I talk about leaning into your strengths, sometimes people go a little bit overboard with this. Or, right, they worry like, hey, if I just do stuff that's in my strengths, isn't it going to put me in a box or put a label on me? Oh, Derek, you're such a quick start. Oh, Deanna, you're such a fact finder, whatever it is. No, don't let them do that. And that's not the only part of you. You have lots of strengths locked inside of you. So don't use it as a label or let people put you in a box. But you also can't use it as an excuse, right? I'm a 3 in follow through, so I can't use that as an excuse. Hey, I'm late. It's okay though, because I'm a 3 in follow through. And I'm not prepared. Not a big deal. I'm a 5 in fact finder. I don't really do details. No, that is not an excuse. The work still has to get done. Just do it in a different way. Commit to using your mental energy productively in a way that lines up with your strengths. And again, to understand what your strengths are, refer back to your Kolbe. Out there in the world, just be aware that there is lots of good advice. It just may not always be good advice for you. And we call that good advice gone bad. Anybody ever heard have a 5-year plan, right? Especially if you're going to start a business. We were actually talking about it. We heard an interview with Oprah Winfrey, and someone said, hey, when you started your business, did you have a 5-year plan? And her answer was no, absolutely not. I just went for it to see what happens. For some of you, have a 5-year plan is great. If you're me and Derek, that's terrible advice. So just be aware of it, right? Or stop procrastinating. I bet a lot of us have heard of that. Or just go with the flow. Finish what you start. These all sound like really good pieces of advice, but depending on your strengths, you can get wildly different results by trying to follow that. One that is one that really kind of stands out that we hear a lot of is, right, stop procrastinating. I heard this all the time. I actually saw in the chats, I think somebody mentioned something about procrastination. If you have a result like me, like Derek, you're a 7, 8, 9, or 10 in quick start, you actually want to procrastinate. So, real life example, on Friday, I blocked out some time in my calendar and I was going to work on this deck. And I sat there and I stared at my screen for a while. And then I went, Eric, you know better than this. Stop. So, what did I do? Yesterday afternoon, I did a little piece of this and I got most of the structure in place. And then this morning, for this webinar, I finished all of the details. I intentionally procrastinated because I knew that was going to create the best results. I was going to come up with the best flow that could have an impact for the rest of you. So stop procrastinating, even though it sounds like good advice is not always good. And there's, like I said, lots of bad pieces of advice out there. If you want some help, you want some Kolbe resources on how do I apply my strengths? How do I start to use them in my life? Go back through your Kolbe A results and especially focus on pages 6, 7, 8, and 9. Because on those pages, what we do is we go through each of your colorful bars, the red one, the blue one, the green one, and the yellow one, and we give you some do's and we give you some don'ts. We try to make it super simple. Do more of this stuff, do less of this stuff. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of homework, but I promise it's really, really easy. Go back through your Kolbe A results, go through pages 6, 7, 8, and 9, and ask yourself, based on those do's and don'ts, what can you do more of? What can you do less of in order to improve my performance? I guarantee you there's some stuff you need to stop doing, even though it sounds like really good advice. If you start to do this, you start to do more of these and less of these, that's where you're going to start to feel like you're in your flow state. You're in the zone. Things are just happening. It doesn't feel hard. And it's because you're leaning into your natural strengths. You're doing and taking action in a way that works for you. So that's one, simple thing that you can do after this session to really begin to apply this inside of your life. But we want to go even deeper. We want to help you even more. And so we have a free gift for all of you. About a year ago, David Kolbe and Amy Bruschi wrote this book called Do More, More Naturally. And there is a chapter in there that's all about good advice gone bad, and it's based on your Kolbe results. I know there wasn't just one question when we asked it about good advice gone bad. Y'all had lots of questions. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to open it up, and we would love to just help live. If you have an issue, a question about a piece of advice, you want to know more about your Kolbe MO, we're here to help. And I see that Derek has unmuted himself, so I'm assuming we have a question.
Yeah, so one question is, you never finish anything was consistent advice from one parent. 7482, is that my Kolbe method of doing things?
Wait, okay, read that one again, Derek.
Yeah, you never finish anything was consistent advice from one parent. I'm guessing their MO is 7482. Is that my Kolbe method of doing things?
So yes, your 7482 is how you naturally get stuff done. And I would bet that you actually do circle back and get stuff done. It's just not always on a set timeline because you're working on this and then you start doing a little bit of research or you get an idea and you kind of go down a rabbit hole. And then you bounce and you work on this thing. And then you kind of bounce around and go, you work on this thing again as you get some more pieces of information. And so most of the time you will circle back. It's just not in a structured 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of method.
And then another question is, how do you politely correct a mentor to let you do it your way?
Yeah, this is great advice. And actually, we help kids with this because in school, right, teachers say you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this. And this is the way that you do it. So let them know, like, hey, that's amazing. And I really appreciate that. Here's how I naturally do things. And if it helps, give them a copy of your Kolbe A results. And so how I naturally do things is I kind of bounce around a little bit. And so just by letting them know, right, like, hey, it's okay that we all have different strengths. Can we agree on the end result? Look, I got it. You want the report to look like this. It's got to be this many pages in this font, whatever it is. Cool. Is it okay if I write the final draft, then do the outline, then do the rough draft? You may have to negotiate a little bit, but the more you can expose them to your strengths, but you have to agree on the end result, the better you're going to be.
Those are the two questions so far. So if anyone has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat.
And again, as you look at the advice that's out there in the world, whether you're reading a book, you see a cool quote on Instagram, whatever it is, it's okay. Look into that advice, but take your natural strengths into account. Because even really, really great advice like suck it up, power through, get it done, is that going to help you? Yes, 100%. However, we all have a practical limit, right? If you've never run a 100-mile race, could you suck it up for the first 10 or 15 miles? Probably. But if you've never run that far, I doubt it you're going to make to 100 miles, right? We all have a practical limit of how much we can do that. So figure out what lines up with your strengths and then follow that path.
Cool. So, and we just had a few questions that came in too. So for reference, I am the marketing director while there's a chief visionary officer. The visionary is a high in quick start, and they are a high in fact finder and follow through. We butt heads constantly in our leadership team because we function differently. Any advice?
Yeah, so I'm gonna guess that that visionary is constantly throwing up, hey, we should try this. What about this? Let's try this new promotion. And you get that all of the time. You're like, well, I have 17 other things we're already doing. Which one? So, a great piece of advice when you're working with someone like that is write down all of their brilliant ideas. And then the next day, circle back to be like, hey, Derek, in our meeting yesterday, you mentioned that you wanted to do this, 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 and this. Derek is going to edit those for you because he's going to be like, oh, no, I was just thinking out loud. Get rid of this one. You know what? We didn't really get this one. This one, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work or not. What do you think? So simply by writing down their ideas and circling back later, you're going to cut that list of 17 probably down to 2 or 3. So that's just an easy, quick win that you can use.
Another question is, I'm a 6293 and an entrepreneur. How can I improve my follow through?
Get some help. So your to and follow through is amazing. Don't think of it as a deficiency. It's actually a strength. What that to means is when stuff goes wrong, when you thought you were going this way and now you're going this way, you thrive in that kind of environment. So you go under, around, and through obstacles to get work done. So lean into that. What you can do though is find a partner. Find someone that you work with, whether it's an assistant, whether it's your COO or a general manager, someone like that, that can install systems and processes and SOPs because you can't wing it all the time. You have to have step-by-step guides so you don't recreate the wheel every single time. So best advice I can get is get some help.
Cool. And then a typical team player would score high in which category?
Totally depends on the team. And I'll give you an example. So we'll use a sports analogy again. If you want to be a offensive tackle in the NFL, you have to be, let's call it roughly 6'5" and roughly 300 plus pounds. Otherwise, they will not look at you. If you are 5'8" and 200 pounds, regardless of how amazing of a team player you are not going to be a starting left tackle in the NFL. You're just not big enough to hold off the defenders, regardless of how great of a team player you are. So you have to look at the role. What are your particular strengths? What are you trying to get done? And then lean into that, lean into your position. Don't just worry about what's the right. There's not a universal right. It's look at the task, look at the job, and then put the right strengths into those.
And then the next question is a 5484, how to deal with burnout when a high quick start and need that chaos while always being told no and to sit still.
Yes. So a couple of the sit still thing. So I have this problem too. So I'm with you. One thing you can do is in a meeting, get up and walk around. Actually, motion, the walking around will help you. Get a whiteboard. So behind my camera back there, I have a whiteboard so I can write down a bunch of ideas. I know that if I went to any of our teams at Kolbe and I gave them all of my ideas, I would overwhelm them. So instead, I will break off some time and I'll write my ideas down on a whiteboard. And then I kind of edit myself the next day or a couple days later and minimize some of those things. So I only have 3 or 4 ideas rather than 50 of them. So keep a journal, a notebook, a whiteboard, something like that.
And then another question is Ali 3467. They're a project manager in IT. When looking for a job, how do you come around the fact that you need a job? You may be good at doing it, but their vision is narrow and may not seem to align with your Colby.
Yeah. That's where kind of practicalities kick in, right? You gotta keep the lights on, you gotta feed yourself, take care of your family, all of those things. So I understand it. In the ideal world, you would find a job where you can use that 3, 4, 6, 7, right? So 3, 4, 6, 7, you don't need to dig into the details. You're more of a big picture, 50,000 foot view kind of person. Also, with that 7 in Implementer, you're very hands-on, very tactical. See if you have a job where you can get out there in the field, use the tools, feel them, get out there with the crew, those types of things. If you find a role that lines up with your strengths, that's where you really start to crush it. And that's where you can become a superstar. And things just start to feel easy. You feel like you're in the flow. Yes, I know that's hard. And so something you could do is, regardless of what role you take, share your results with your boss. Hey, I know the job needs to get done like this. These are my KPIs. We have to get these projects done by this time, this budget, all that. We can agree on that. Here's how I naturally roll. And then negotiate some of the pieces, right? Is it okay if I don't give you a 14-page detailed report at the end of each day? What if we do that once a week, something like that? See where there's a little bit of push and pull to still get the job done.
Cool. Another question is, any tips for a quick start for offloading tedious tasks to AI?
um, Again, I don't know the rest of your MO, so it's a little hard. But my advice is use a program that you can talk to. Because I found when I'm creating like little assistants, whether it's gems in Gemini or GPTs in Chat GPT or whatever, just talk and say, hey, I need you to do this, 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 and this. This kind of stuff frustrates me. Now create a prompt to build an assistant for me. And it will actually build all of that stuff into a prompt. You then copy that and create your custom GPT or create your custom gem in Gemini.
Another one, and their MO is 3-2-10-3.
Okay. So yeah, do what I just said.
Next one is, I am a 7-5-7-2. Until the picture's very clear in my head, I don't start doing, and most people feel that I am slow in executing projects. Is that a reflection of their result, their MO?
100%. So 7 through 10 in Fact Finder, you need all the information. You need answers to all of the questions before you jump in to solve problems. Otherwise, you do what looks like procrastination because you're researching online, you're reading a blog article, you're asking people around the office, hey, what did he mean by that? And can you get a little bit of clarity on this piece here? Once you have all that info, you can jump in and start to make stuff happen. So my advice to you is ask those questions up front. And look, you probably can't ask 57 questions, but the 4 or 5 most critical pieces of information, ask questions around that. All right.
And then last one is, how can I find the best job fit to my Kolbe 8472?
Yeah. So similar advice, Samantha, to the person I gave earlier is find a role that allows you to lean into that 8 in Fact Finder, really dig into the details, ask a bunch of questions, get into the specifics, right? Those types of things. We actually have a tool, and Derek can put the link in the chat, that will help understand what are your conative strengths? What are you interested in? What do you have skills and experience in? And it combines all those together and it will give you some ideas for a role. And it will also give you some ideas of, hey, don't do this kind of job. Derek, myself, the rest of the Kolbe team, we want to say thank you for joining us. If there's anything that we can do to help, Kolbe.com is a great place to start, or email us at info@kolbe.com. Again, thanks everybody. Have a fantastic rest of the week.